I'm standing at the southernmost point of the United States, and tonight I'll be shooting the Milky Way. But first, we've got to plan the perfect shot, use the right gear, and make it through a crazy journey, just to get this one epic image. Can we capture the Milky Way in all its glory from this remote location? Let's see if all the effort pays off. Let's go. Alright, let's dive into the gear I'm using to capture this epic Milky Way shot. First up, we have the camera. So this is going to be a Nikon Z8. This thing is an absolute beast, especially for low light photography. The Z8 has a full frame sensor that excels in these dark conditions. And when you're shooting the Milky Way, that low light performance is everything. It lets me crank up the ISO without losing too much detail or adding noise, which is key when shooting stars. Next, I'm pairing the Z8 with the Nikon Z 14 to 24mm f2.8 lens. So this lens here is an ultra wide angle lens that's perfect for capturing those expansive, sweeping night skies. At 14mm, it can fit a huge portion of the Milky Way into the frame, while f2.8 keeps things bright. Wide open apertures are super important when shooting at night because they allow more light to hit the sensor, which gives us those bright stars without star trails. Now next up, this is going to be my Ulanzi travel tripod. This is a lightweight and compact tripod that's great for when I'm trekking out to remote spots like the southernmost point in the US. But don't let its size fool you, it's incredibly sturdy and that's crucial for the long exposure shots that I'm going to be taking. Any shake or movement and the entire shot could be ruined. So I'm relying on this tripod to help me keep things steady. It's going to get pitch black out there, so I've got this trusty headlamp with me to help navigate in the dark. So you definitely don't want to be fumbling around with your gear in the middle of the night, and the headlamp is going to leave my hands free to set everything up quickly and make sure that I don't hurt myself in the field. For the actual shooting, I'm going to be using an intervalometer to help control the camera and get the long exposures without touching the camera. This is essential for avoiding camera shake when you're doing long exposures. And just in case I need to add a little light to the foreground or do some light painting, I've packed these 96 LED light panels. I don't want to overpower the stars, but having the option to add some low-level lighting can really make the shot stand out. So that's everything that I'm going to pack for this shot. Now let's get all of this gear out to the southernmost point in the US and see if we can capture the Milky Way in all of its glory. Planning this trip has been just as important as the gear itself. I'm traveling 3,700 miles from Dallas, Texas, all the way to the Big Island of Hawaii. Why? Because Hawaii has some of the darkest skies in the US, and South Point is the southernmost point in the country. That means no light pollution from cities or nearby towns, just wide open skies. I started by using Google Earth to pinpoint the exact location for my shot. Right here at the South Point. This is one of the most remote locations on the Big Island, with rugged terrain and nothing but the ocean to the south. It's exactly what you want for astrophotography. The more isolated you are, the better the stars will look, with no artificial light to mess with your exposure. By scouting the location virtually, I also learned about the terrain. It's rocky, windy, and pretty rough to get to, but it's going to be worth it. My hotel is in Kona, which is about 1.5 hours from South Point. That means I'll need to leave well before sunset to get there and set up before it gets too dark. Next, I use the PhotoPills app to figure out exactly where the Milky Way will be on the horizon. This app is a game changer for astrophotography. It shows you the exact location of the Milky Way based on your time and location. According to the app, the Milky Way will rise just after sunset and be visible for most of the night, arcing across the southern horizon. I've also pinpointed the sunset time. It's going to set around 6:15 p.m., so I'll have a window of twilight to get my gear set up and maybe snap a few sunset photos. The best part? The moon won't be above the horizon. That means that no moonlight will be present to wash out the stars. I'll have a perfectly dark sky for the Milky Way to shine. So I've planned the location, the timing, and the conditions. Now it's all about execution. Everything looks perfect on paper, but the real test comes when we're out there under the stars. Let's hope the weather holds and the sky stays clear. So the adventure's finally begun. We're all packed up and we'll be heading out to the Big Island of Hawaii tomorrow morning, 3,700 miles from home. And believe me, this is no ordinary trip. I'll be out there trying to shoot the Milky Way at the southernmost point of the US, and of course spending time with my family. The flight itself is stunning. Watching the terrain change from the mainland US to the vast Pacific Ocean is just unreal. It's the calm before the storm because once we land, the real adventure begins. Touchdown. We've arrived on the Big Island and now it's time to get moving. The next part of the journey, a 1.5 hour drive from Kona to the southernmost point in the US. But first, some time on the beach and a few Mai Tais. The views on the island are incredible. Every turn on the road offers something new, from lava fields to ocean cliffs. So it's taken a flight, a long drive, and a little bit of unluckiness with the weather. You can see here with the clouds, but this is what I was given. And so let's go ahead and make the best out of it. All right, so the time's finally here. The start is starting to come out, and we'll start getting the shots soon here. I've got the Nikon Z8 set up here with a Nikon Z 14 to 24 millimeter f2.8 lens. Additionally, I'll be using a LED panel to help light up the composition. I've got my Ulanzi travel tripod. Now for the composition, originally I was planning on setting up down there a little bit closer to the water. However, with how rough the water is, I just don't feel safe and comfortable. So I'm gonna stick up here for now and just use this rock as a foreground with all these little holes in it. So this image is gonna take several images to actually set up. With the camera, I'm gonna take 2 separate shots for the foreground, both utilizing focus stacking so that I can make sure that it's in focus. I'm going to use some blue hour light so that I can blend that later in Photoshop. You can tell the wind's pretty high here, so my arm's getting a little tired. As for the Milky Way shot, I'm going to shoot at ISO 10,000. I'm going to shoot at f2.8, and I'll also be taking 15-second exposures. And what I'll end up doing is I'm going to take 10 to 15 of those, and then we're going to stack them in Lightroom later, as long as these clouds clear out. However, I don't think we're going to, so we might just end up using a single image with the cool clouds blurring through the Milky Way. So for me, it's all about patience now. I'm just waiting on the sun to fully set to let the Milky Way come out. I'm just enjoying the waiting moment, and we'll get to shooting the Milky Way here shortly. So I know this is a terrible photo or a video here, but I just want to show you where I'm at right now. The sun's mostly set. We're in astronomical twilight, and this is the image that I'm getting so far. To be honest, with it being cloudy, this is the best thing that I could expect. So I'm loving this photo and can't wait to get home and edit it. With the photo in the bag, it's time to head back to Dallas. Came in with a bang, and it's time to start the editing process. But editing a Milky Way shot isn't just about a quick tweak, it's a process. So the first thing that we're going to do here, we've got 2 images, we've got a foreground and we've got a background going here. So first, let's get the foreground adjusted. So for this, I want to bump this exposure up to about 0.9. From here, this raises the brightness in the foreground. Next thing that I want to do is I want to go in here and I want to bump the texture and the clarity up in the foreground as well. Additionally here, I want to keep the white balance the same way that I shot it in camera. Next up, I want to raise these shadows just a little bit to bring out a little bit of that detail in those black rocks. Then I want to go down here and I want to adjust my detail and my sharpness. So for this, I'm going to drop the radius, bring the detail up, and then increase the sharpness. Additionally, I want to go through here, bump up my luminance noise reduction just to kind of smooth out those rocks, because at the end of the day, that's not the subject of the photo, it's the Milky Way. All right, so now that I've got that adjusted, let's take a look at the Milky Way photo. So coming in here to this copy, the first thing I want to do, as I did with the other photo, is I want to adjust the exposure. We're going to bring this up just to bring out the whole brightness in that scene. Next, I want to jump up the temperature just a little bit, because I want this to be a little warmer than the other one so that there's some contrast between the sky and the foreground. Also, you've got the sunset going on here, and that'll help draw the viewer's eye towards that direction a little bit. The next thing I want to do here is I want to bump the texture a little bit. I also want to bump some of the clarity just to help with the Milky Way. And then I also want to bump up the dehaze here a little bit. I want to add in some vibrance, and I also want to add in some saturation because I've got that sunset going on, and to bring out some color in the Milky Way. Now, the next item that I want to do here is I want to drop this down here in the shadows, and I want to raise my highlights just a little bit, just to help put some contrast in the Milky Way, and we'll move on from there. The next thing that we're going to do, going down here to the sharpening, this I usually don't touch. The luminance, I'm going to bump this up pretty high, up to around 60 or 70, and we'll leave it there. That just helps smooth out the clouds in the sky and also helps reduce some of the noise that's in the sky. And then last but not least, I've been using the denoise feature in Lightroom for a little while, so we'll go ahead and apply that here as well. So let's go ahead and just check how this looks in the sky. Overall pretty good. I don't want to go too far with it, but I do want to soften up the sky a little bit and just remove any of the grain in the sky. So now that that's worked its magic, we'll go ahead and just zoom in here, check it out, make sure everything looks okay. So the next step here, we're going to take both of these images And we're gonna go open those in Photoshop, and we're gonna do a open as layers. All right, so I've got both of these images open here. I'm gonna go ahead and convert both of these to smart objects. That'll just help it if I need to do any camera raw adjustments to it. The next thing that I wanna do here is, this is my sky image here. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna go to select sky, let it make that selection for me. We'll give it just a second here. We've got it. So now we're gonna go ahead and apply a mask on that. We actually need to invert this, so we'll go ahead and move that up to this one. And as you can see here, they're now blended. However, the only issue is I need to adjust the color on the sky here so that it actually matches and blends here. So from here, we're gonna go into camera raw filter. What we're trying to do here is we wanna make these two layers match so that they actually look blended. So what I gathered from that is I need to go a little bit bluer on the Milky Way, which is basically going backwards from the adjustment I made. Again, looks like we need to go a little bit further, so let's just keep adjusting that until we get it correct. So right there, I think we're in a pretty decent spot. So what I want to do here is I want to add another adjustment layer in here. We're just going to up the saturation here, just try to make this photo pop just a little bit more. Right there, I think is pretty good. We could probably bring out some different color if we really wanted to go a little bit more purple, a little bit more blue, but I kind of like where that's at right there. And just like that, I've walked through a very basic approach to my editing process. Obviously, if I wasn't on camera, I'd spend a lot more time going through here. This is the final image that I came up with. Absolutely love this photo. I love the way that the clouds are moving through the scene. You've got the Milky Way, you've got the ocean blurred from the waves crashing during the long exposure. This was totally worth the flight, the drive, the vacation time with my family, and staying out late one night just to go get this photo. That's how I took this epic Milky Way shot from planning to editing. If you want to dive deeper into my editing process, how I stack images, adjust every detail, and make the stars pop, be sure to check out my full editing tutorial. I'll walk you through everything step by step. Click here to watch it now, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss more tips and behind the scenes action. See you in the next one.